Recently, some really interesting rumors have been circulating around the God of War franchise. There hasn't been any official announcement yet, but according to claims from reliable sources, Santa Monica Studio may be working on a new project set in the God of War universe. And the most intriguing rumor is that this game might not focus on Kratos, but on Faye instead. In other words, we might see a different kind of God of War game centered around Kratos' wife. We'll talk about all the details in a moment. But before we get into the video, I have a small request. Liking the video and leaving a comment really helps because it directly supports these kinds of videos reaching more people. If you support the channel, we can grow it together even more. So if you're ready, let's begin. Among all these rumors, the thing that caught my attention the most is the new God of War project, reportedly led by Cory Barlog. Because he's not just an ordinary director or creative lead. We're talking about someone who delivered an incredibly strong game during the classic era with God of War 2, and later almost redefined the entire franchise with God of War 2018. So this isn't just a successful developer, it's someone who has the power to completely reshape the direction of the series. That's why the idea that Barlog might once again be preparing something major in this universe is exciting even at the rumor stage. What makes this project even more interesting is that it doesn't seem to be a traditional mainline sequel. Based on what we're hearing right now, this could be a project set within the God of War universe, but positioned outside the main storyline. And despite that, it's reportedly not a small-scale game at all. The most fascinating part comes from recent claims suggesting that the story might focus on Faye instead of Kratos. Of course, this information isn't official yet and should be taken cautiously, but the fact that multiple insider sources have started saying similar things makes it feel like more than just a random internet rumor. At first, the idea of Faye might seem unexpected to some players. In the modern God of War games, we mostly knew her as a presence felt in the background of the story. But if you look closely, Faye actually holds a much bigger role in this universe than it initially appears. She's not just Kratos' wife and Atreus' mother. She's also a warrior with a past, someone who stood against Odin's order, and a character who has even clashed with a power like Thor. If a game truly places her at the center of the story, that choice wouldn't just serve as an emotional backstory. It could also reveal some of the most important turning points in the Norse world from an entirely new perspective. This is exactly where my interest in the project really begins. One of the things I've been most curious about in the God of War universe for a long time is the period when Kratos transitioned from the Greek world to the Norse realm. The series showed us the result of that journey, but it never fully explored everything that happened in between. If a Faye-centered game actually happens, it might not tell Kratos' entire transition story from beginning to end, but it could open up the most critical parts of that era and turn events that were previously only hinted at into a fully realized narrative. That alone could make the game more than just a side story. It could become a major piece that fills some of the most important gaps in the main universe. In a scenario where Faye is the protagonist, one of the most powerful possibilities would be seeing her warrior side before she ever met Kratos, watching how she fought against Odin, why she held such an important place among the Jotnar, and exploring the background of her clashes with Thor could completely change how we view the Norse era of the story. Until now, most of what we've heard about Faye came from fragmented accounts told by other characters. But if a game is built around her perspective, we could finally experience who she really is firsthand. That could deepen the story not only mythologically, but emotionally as well. One of the most compelling aspects of such a story would be the first encounter between Kratos and Faye. Imagine Kratos at a time when he's trying to escape his past, suppress his anger, and isolate himself from the world. On the other side, you have Faye, a powerful and determined warrior standing at the center of a war for her people and her world. Their first meeting could carry just as much dramatic weight as any massive action sequence. Watching how their relationship develops and how their shared fate begins could easily turn into one of the most powerful character narratives the God of War universe has ever explored. Another question I'm really curious about is how much Kratos would appear if this project truly focuses on Faye. On one hand, the idea of Faye as the main character is fascinating. But on the other hand, the idea of a God of War game without Kratos is still something that many players might find hard to accept. Personally, I think the most balanced approach would be keeping Kratos out of the center of the story, but allowing him to appear at very crucial moments. Maybe not as a fully playable character, but perhaps in short sections that carry a lot of narrative weight. Even getting closer to the darker, more broken version of Kratos from the post-God of War 3 era could be one of the most powerful elements of the game. The gameplay rumors are just as interesting as the story speculation. Some claims suggest the game might feature a faster, more aggressive, and more action-heavy combat system. Some people even compare it to games like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. But honestly, I think those comparisons are just another way of describing something more combo-focused and closer to a classic hack-and-slash style. When I see those comments, what I imagine is a system that brings back some of the pace of the older God of War games while still keeping elements of the modern formula. That said, I don't think the game will completely return to the old-school God of War style. Expectations like the camera pulling far back again, or the gameplay becoming fully arcade-like, don't feel very realistic. After all, one of the key figures who reinvented the modern God of War formula is Cory Barlog himself. It seems unlikely that he would simply revert the series entirely to its old design. A more believable scenario would be a hybrid approach, faster and more aggressive combat, while still maintaining the cinematic storytelling and character depth that define the modern era of the franchise. If they can achieve that balance, it could satisfy longtime fans while keeping the series fresh. And honestly, that's where most of my trust in this project comes from. Cory Barlog has never approached God of War simply as a series of sequels. Every time he's worked on it, he's pushed the franchise forward in a meaningful way, reshaping its direction, evolving its storytelling, and changing how players view the brand. If this project is truly being developed under his leadership, I don't see it as a small side project at all. Instead, it could be a major step in expanding the God of War universe into new directions. I also understand why some players might feel hesitant about the idea of playing as Faye. Kratos has always been the face of the franchise, and we've experienced this world through his eyes for years. But I think there's a misunderstanding here. A Faye-focused project wouldn't necessarily mean Kratos is gone, or that the main character of the franchise is changing permanently. It would be more like exploring the same universe from a different perspective, something that expands the main storyline rather than replacing it. In fact, it could give Kratos' story even more emotional context. Looking at the bigger picture, it feels like Sony may be starting to treat God of War as a broader franchise rather than just a single game series. There are rumors about remakes, discussions about new projects, and even a television adaptation moving forward. When you look at it that way, it wouldn't be surprising to see the brand expanding across different types of projects at the same time. In major franchises like this, games and other media often support each other, so it makes sense that Sony might want to grow the God of War universe more aggressively in the coming years. The idea of Egyptian mythology still remains one of the most popular theories about where the main series could go next. Many fans believe that Kratos will eventually travel there, and honestly, I think that's very possible too. But that's not exactly what we're talking about here. The discussion right now isn't about the next mainline sequel, it's about the possibility of a parallel project that expands the universe in a different direction. If the Faye-centered idea turns out to be true, it could fill major gaps in the past, while also setting up the future of the series in a much stronger way. God of War is no longer just a powerful action series, it's gradually becoming a larger narrative universe. If that expansion is handled carefully, creatively, and with the right ideas, the future of this franchise could be incredibly exciting. But if the brand is pushed too far and spread across too many projects without careful planning, it could also risk fatigue. So right now, I'm standing somewhere between excitement and caution. The potential is huge, but it needs to be handled the right way. Based on the information we have right now, the strongest conclusion is this: a new project set in the God of War universe may indeed be in development, and it might exist slightly outside the traditional mainline structure. What strengthens this possibility isn't just one insider claim. It's the fact that multiple sources are pointing in similar directions, along with hints from past statements and signs from the studio itself. Especially phrases like, a new franchise within the God of War universe, and the connection to Cory Barlog make this rumor feel more serious than a random forum discussion. Still, it's important to remember that none of this has been officially confirmed yet. The idea of Faye as the protagonist remains the most exciting but also the most uncertain part of the rumor. From a lore perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Her past, her connection to Thor, her importance among the Jotnar, and her hidden influence over Kratos' Norse journey all suggest she could easily carry a major story on her own. But at this moment, it's still not official information. So while I see it as a strong possibility, I also think it's important not to treat it as a confirmed fact yet. For now, it's a rumor that's gaining momentum but hasn't reached the final stage. Personally, the biggest source of confidence for me in all of this is still Cory Barlog. We're talking about someone who pushed the franchise to the top during the classic era, and then successfully reinvented it in the modern era. Any project coming from a creative leader like that, whether it's a mainline entry or a large-scale side project, automatically deserves to be taken seriously. If this project truly exists, it might not just be another game announcement. It could be a major turning point that shows how the God of War franchise plans to grow in the future. But now, I'm really curious about what you think. Would you actually want to see a God of War game focused on Faye? Or do you think the next major step in the series should continue directly with Kratos again? Be sure to write your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your likes and comments really help these videos reach more people. See you in the next video.